Okay, we're going to be talking about day 5 and day 6 in this video. You guys, Don Richard got on that stand and made herself look absolutely crazy. And I do mean crazy with a capital C. So many inconsistencies, so much motive behind the stuff that she's doing. And my big question for Don Richards is, why are you just now doing this? If you knew that that girl was in danger, if you knew that Cassie Ventura was being beat on, being assaulted, being all of these things, and you sat there and watched these things happen as a woman and you did nothing about it, then something's wrong with you just as much as it is with Diddy. That is called being an associate or being guilty by complicity. Okay, what is going on today? Don Richard made herself look absolutely crazy up on that stand, and not only that, but she is kind of unhousing the house that the prosecution is building. Now, when it comes to building a case, you and allowing the audience, your jury, to see what it is that you're trying to say, it has to be a full story. It has to be a novel from beginning to ending. It has to be a well knit, well put together sweater of sorts. I mean, you are knitting a hat to put on to the jury's head so that they understand that it was cold outside that day. And let me make you warm and understand what's going on in this story and with this situation. Okay, so that is the burden of the prosecution, is to make sure that there's no reasonable doubt at all that it was cold outside that day, if you understand what I'm saying. Okay, so there has to be a full story, and Don Richards is kind of one of those people that wants to help all of a sudden, but has a motive and doesn't have her timeline or anything else together. Don Richards was a huge disappointment on the stand, huge disappointment in real life, because she was supposed to be one of Cassie's friends and did absolutely nothing to help that young lady or speak or make awareness or anything of that nature. And she's a huge disappointment to me, just as a woman, because you could have come out and said anything, and you bought zero awareness for women, specifically when we were going through the Me Too's and all this stuff like that. Don Richards sat in the background, said and did nothing. She admitted herself to watching Diddy do certain things to Cassie and did absolutely nothing to help Cassie Ventura, knowing that the young lady was on drugs, strung out, and fighting for her soul, dealing with a Diddy up in here. I wrote some notes for you guys. I want to help you to understand exactly what happened. So I wrote some notes on my phone. Really quick, day 5, because I did cover day 3 and 4 in my last video. I'll post that in the description box as well as pin it in the comment section. Let's go over day 5. So, okay, March 16th, it was the conclusion of Cassie Ventura's extensive testimony. Don Richards, Richard took the stand as a witness, and the presentation of evidence by Homeland Security investigations, said their special agent as well took the stand. The defense, now I'm going to tell you guys, and I told you guys this in my last video, the judge is so irritated with Diddy's defense. I'm actually quite scared for him, because, excuse me, well, I'm not scared for him because this is he need to go. But when the judge is so frustrated with your defense because they're taking too long to prove their point, or they are going in circles, or for any reason that the judge has to be irritated with your defense team, that is so not good. Like I told you guys in the last video, they wanted to challenge the credibility of the timeline and the accusations of the RAPE. Don Richard, a former associate of Combs, began her testimony. She basically corroborated the physical abuse in the accounts that were made against Diddy by Cassie. The special agent presented physical evidence gathered during Combs' arrest, including drugs, cash, and other items consistent with Ventura's testimony, and about the alleged freak-offs. Throughout the arguments, the prosecution and the defense, they focused on the admissibility and interpretation of the presented evidence and the overall strategy of their cases. Okay, so let me just say this. When Homeland Security did their raid on Diddy's place, they found ketamine, all kind of different opioids. I'm talking about the big boy stuff. Okay, I'm not talking about your little $20 bag of, you know, F with an M or AC with a C, or with a CR. I'm talking about they found big boy, big league DRUGSs. Okay, so the fifth day, okay, of course, that was Cassie's fourth day on the stand. Cross examination, trying to undermine Cassie. Okay. Um, then let's see. During Cassie's testimony, I want to say there was a moment where she said, where they pointed out, because the defense right now is trying to point out both Don Richard and Cassie's motive. They're basically saying that this is a money run. They're trying to get money out of Diddy, and they pointed out that Cassie had received a $10 million settlement, and that that could be a big motive for her wanting to do this. She wanted to get money first, and then she wants to do this to where she could probably, gain more money, or a book or whatever, however that can look, however she needs to get that money, right? Cassie's response is that she would give back the $20 million settlement she received from Combs if it meant that she never had to participate in the freak offs. Okay, she said that the impact of the freak offs on her life has been detrimental. She said she canceled her music tour, and she had planned to move to Connecticut in 2023 following the settlement of her lawsuit with Combs, but her career suffered when she was with him, and she basically felt like a SEX worker while she was with him. And so she's not even been able to continue her goals even after leaving him and getting with her husband, Alex Fine, who was Diddy's trainer from 2015. So I don't know if you guys have been hearing, but Alex Fine actually had been on the phone with Cassie during one of the situations where she was being involved intimately with Sean Diddy Combs. Okay. Alex Fine knew that she was high out of her mind, that she was being assaulted. And he decided, as her friend and as someone that loved her and wanted to see her do well and do better than Diddy, to sit on FaceTime with her while she went through that situation with Diddy. And of course, Diddy didn't mind because he's a real freak, right? So he sat there and continued to pump and do what he did on Cassie while Alex Fine sat on FaceTime for her, making sure to support her through her being high out of her mind. Listen, that's a dedication that I don't know many people to be able to do. I think that Alex Fine really, really wanted to help Cassie, unlike Don Richard and Aubrey O'Day and Kalina. And I think that he did what he could do at the time. Now, do I feel like he should have called the law? I absolutely do. But I guess these people didn't feel like they were in position to do that at the time. Whatever the case, it's sad that this was drug out as long as it was. So now we have when Don Richards was on the stand, and Lord help this woman. Her accounts, now mind you, she has talked to investigating officers 5 or 6 times, which the defense pointed out. And each 5 and 6 times she's had different accounts of what actually happened, even from saying that there were eggs thrown at Cassie to the point of her saying the whole pan of eggs, the pan itself, was thrown at Cassie. So she went from eggs to just the pan. And she said that was when Combs got angry. After Cassie had prepared breakfast, he began to kick her while she was on the ground. And then the next day, he said that it was just what people in relationships do. And he gave both Richard and Cassie some flowers. Now, she further claims that he threatened her and other witnesses with abuse who would, quote, go missing. Oh my, not go missing, because there's a lot of speculation behind some of the things that Diddy is involved in. I don't know if you guys know, but Gene Deal, his security guard, has been speaking a lot on his dealings in the industry and how people have come up missing, even to the point where they're saying that Combs has been involved in Diddy's, the Notorious B.I.G.'s missing. Okay, they're saying that Sean Diddy Combs is involved in the Notorious B.I.G., his artist, having that situation where he was unalived. I'm just saying, okay, that is what his security guard is actually saying. So when you're that close to Diddy and you know his ins and his outs and his goings and comings, it's kind of it comes across believable. I mean, at least to me. Okay, the defense argued against Richard's testimony with a skillet attack, as I just told you guys. She also said that she witnessed a situation at a restaurant where she saw Diddy punch Cassie in her stomach. So apparently they were arguing on the DL, arguing amongst themselves, and then suddenly he just punched Cassie dead in her stomach. She said there was an assault following a music festival at Central Park where he punched Cassie in her face. She talked about assault in a Sprinter van where he grabbed Cassie by her neck and then slammed her in the mouth or slapped her in the mouth. Now here's my situation right there with Don Richard. Why would you be sitting up there watching this girl get beat on like that and not say nothing? That's crazy. So she goes on to say that Combs used an array of drugs and even kept a pistol on him, which made her intimidated and afraid. The defense questioned her about inconsistency between her courtroom testimony and previous statements that she gave in her 5 and 6 times meeting with investigative officers. They also talked about her decision to contact him to work again. Yes, she contacted him to work again. She actually contacted him in 2020, trying to reboot the show that she was on with him making the band. And she was going to work with someone else to be a judge on the show, but she wanted to reboot his show. And she was contacting him, asking him, can she work for him again? And the defense is like, if you were so afraid and thought that he was going to unalive you and you felt like his threats were valid, why would you be contacting him to work with him again? It makes absolutely no sense. I'm very disappointed at Don Richard. You're trying to make yourself come across to look like some type of victim, but at the end of the day, you are reaching out to this man and trying to get in touch with this man and trying to be in this man's life. Whereas you have people like Terrence Howard who get as far away from this man as they possibly can. That's not you, though. You're not doing that. Okay. So she goes on to say that Richard says that Combs told Cassie he owns her, he controls her music career, and that he did not like her or Kalina Harper speaking on Cassie, and he threatened that something bad will happen if they interfere with what he's doing with Cassie, which is abusing the heck out of her. Okay. Staff members witnessed him be very violent and never intervened. And Richard herself has a pending lawsuit against him for abuse and withheld earnings. So she's basically saying that she wants to be paid for the time that she worked for him, that she did not get paid. And of course, you guys know the defense is going to try to dig as many holes in her story because of that as they possibly can. So they were pointing out her inconsistencies, and she was saying, well, it's because she didn't remember timelines. But it wasn't just timelines. It was, like I said, the difference between throwing eggs and throwing a skillet. On and when it comes to the punching in the stomach, she says that she was the only one there to certain investigative officers, but then she testified that Usher and Neo were present at the time that Diddy punched Cassie in the stomach when she was on the stand. So there's just so many different inconsistencies that she has stated. She also never mentioned that Combs carried a pistol. She said that his bodyguards were armed. So these are the inconsistencies that she is having on the stand. And I don't like that. You know why? Because it casts a reasonable doubt. It gives the jury time to say, well, are these people trying to get him in trouble just for his money? Are these people really hurting? Are they really going through it? Or are they just trying to over exaggerate these stories so that they can get their way and possibly get a bag? That is what's going on. Of course, a win in criminal court will be a win in civil court for Don Richards. And so, it's just very, very, I don't know. She just very much gave me go sit down, but not on the stand because you're making this not okay. I know that. Then listen, one person's testimony is not going to make the whole house fall down, but at the end of the day, that your impression can stay in the jury's brain, and they can obviously they can be like, well, she said this and she said that, and then it wasn't lining up for me. It's really up to our peers. That is what court is about. Court is about the public saying whether or not they want you to continue to be in their community. Do they believe that you committed these crimes or not? That's why it's up to the peers and not the judge to say whether you are guilty or not. And with you having these inconsistencies on the stand, Don Richard, you are casting reasonable doubts, and I do not like it. I needed you to get your testimony together before you went to court because you knew that you were going to testify, which is crazy. Okay, so she basically served as a significant cooperator to Cassie on these multiple accounts of physical abuse, and someone who had directly observed what was going on. Okay, and the defense says that the inconsistencies in her statements suggest a potential bias due to her own legal and professional history with Combs, and they undermined her to the jury. So, yeah. Okay. On Friday, May 16th, we had a special agent from Homeland Security spoke. He took the stand and he testified about the search at the Manhattan hotel room at the time of Diddy's arrest. He reportedly discovered drugs including ketamine, ecstasy, and several prescription medications. They also found $9,000 in cash inside of a backpack. The agent testified to finding several bottles of Johnson's baby oil and Astroglide lubricant. I had to take that. Listen, I had to take that Astroglide lubricant note because I never even heard of that before Diddy's trial. Like, you over here opening people up to new lubricants. Like, what is going on? So anyway, the agent said that the agent confirmed that she was the photographer who documented the search. Jurors were shown the plastic baggies containing pink powder, which prosecutors said was ketamine or MDMA or a combination of the two. Photos showed large containers of baby oils and lubricants discovered in the bathtub. And you know, it's funny that they say that it was discovered in the bathtub because one of that actually corroborates one of Sean Diddy Combs' employees' statement that they would have to go and like snake out bathtubs and remove baby oil from the bathtub before the hotel found it, because he would destroy bathtubs and the entire hotel room with all kind of lubricants. There would be oil everywhere. They would have to hire people to come and clean these places before the hotel found out or before the time of checkout. The testimony of the HSI agent showed tangible evidence which aligned with Cassie and other witnesses regarding the alleged drug use and the presence of lubricants during the freak-offs. The physical evidence is crucial in supporting the narrative, so that's why it's important that they found this stuff. And the cash could be interpreted in several different ways, but of course, they're going to contribute that cash to him hiring sex workers, and we already know that. This is the reason why I don't feel like he's going to get away with this, because hello, there's sex workers, and he has, one of his charges is flying people in for the sake of prostitution. So he's gonna go. I mean, I think that's a very easy thing to prove, especially at this point, because one of those sex workers actually took the stand on the first day. So it's not like they can't prove that he was flying in and paying for prostitutes and flying people across the states for the purpose of engaging in that type of behavior. Okay, throughout day 5, both the prosecution and the defense presented their legal arguments, and the prosecution indicated that they were on track to conclude their case within 6 weeks, focusing on efficient presentation of their evidence. They also expressed concerns regarding the defense's extensive cross-examination of Ventura, which irritated the judge. So here was the issue with the extensive questioning of Cassie, because I want to make sure I put this in my notes too. The worry is that the prolonged questioning of a witness in her advanced stage of her pregnancy could lead to a mistrial. What you don't want is Cassie going into labor because she's stressed out and not being able to take the stand again if she needs to be called, or something of the nature. The prosecutor said that the defense unnecessarily prolonged Ventura's testimony on purpose, and they argued that the way that the defense argued about eggs over a skillet, like if Diddy threw eggs, or rather he threw a skillet, shows a consciousness of guilt, because at the end of the day, you're throwing either hot eggs or a skillet on someone. At the end of the day, neither one of them is okay. So you are basically admitting guilt, but you're trying to poke holes in this story. However, you're still admitting guilt, because neither one of those, again, is okay to do. Additionally, they said that Rashard's testimony served to prove that Combs did threaten several witnesses with violence and employee coercion and force, and they are key elements in supporting the racketeering charge against him. The defense continued to challenge its strategy about Cassie Ventura's credibility, timelines, and inconsistent statements. They continue to argue that their evidence presented primarily pointed to domestic violence within a complex relationship rather than it being a federal crime that was being committed. And that Don Richards' testimony about the skillet attack means that, of course, they're trying to say that it was not, that her testimony is invalid and trying to poke holes through that. Okay. So day 6, as day 5 concluded, they appear to be progressing along. Now, I'm going to tell you guys, Sean Combs's children are not in attendance on this day. And the reason being is because the boys, do you guys realize that his daughters have had to go to prom in the middle of him having this case? And not for nothing, but one of his twin daughters became homecoming queen. Like, he's missing these beautiful moments, but his kids are not tripping. And I'm going to tell you why. Because now at this point, they have open wallets, they have open access to his money. And so they don't seem to be in a state of disarray. I think the money is pacifying them right now. But the boys, Quincy and King Combs, have had to take on the father role to the twins. The twins have no parents. They have no parents. And I'm going to point this out, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that a little bit more in my next video about them going to their prom and what they were dressed in and how that looks. So make sure you guys keep your eyes open for that. But the twins have absolutely no one. They are left with nothing. And this is the way when you allow something as demonic as what Diddy was doing to crumble his whole life, some other people's whole lives, somebody else's whole life. This is what happens. There are indirect victims, and the biggest victims here are his children, who are left with nothing and nobody. Those girls are just, it's a sad situation. Anyways, yeah, so Don Richards, she came off as a witness. She offered a crucial layer of cooperation. Again, as I said, physical evidence, we talked about that. Legal strategy. And here's the thing, okay? They're basically on today, they are showing a pattern of coercive behavior, because while the defense is trying to say Cassie agreed to this and that, she was coerced to do it. She was under the influence of drugs. Who were those drugs being funded by? Where were those drugs coming from? I mean, honestly, stop it. That is just so crazy, okay? Yeah, so the judge was in complete shock and awe at some of the things that was said in the courtroom, as you know, as the judge should be. I pointed out in one of my previous videos, I believe it says Cassie Ventura testimony day 3 and 4. You know, I pointed out that sometimes when you live a certain lifestyle, you're desensitized to the fact that sounds crazy. Okay, ain't nothing normal about this situation. Okay, so anyway, day 5 concluded with Ventura's impactful testimony and Don Richards corroborating what she said. And let me tell you guys, it was a hot mess. It was not okay. It was absolutely not okay. Yeah, I just want to summarize this. Okay, Don Richards, the reason why I got upset with her is because of the doubt that she cast. Am I glad that she went up there and corroborated Cassie Ventura's story? Yes, I am. Do I know that there's a chance that she may not have said anything because she was waiting for Cassie to make her move? Sure, I do. They're both grown women, but it just made me upset. So here was why her testimony was more hurtful than helpful. She was inconsistent in her testimony. She had questionable memory recall. She had a financial motivation and a bias. She contacted Combs after he allegedly threatened to unalive her, and she acknowledged her own career setbacks, which allowed her to still want to work for Sean Diddy Combs. And I mean, it's just not okay, right? So on May 19th, okay, which is today, okay, on good old May 19th, and we're on day 6 now, the prosecution continued to present its case, presenting testimony from Don Richards and Carrie Morgan. Now, you guys, I'm gonna just read my notes full through on this one because this is, yeah, a lot went on. So Don Richards, a former collaborator of Combs, corroborated Cassie Ventura's allegations. She recounted witnessing several violent incidents. Um, and she also said that he threatened her as well. Additionally, we already know about the punching and stuff. The defense cross-examined her about her inconsistencies in her own civil lawsuit. Then Carrie Morgan took the stand. So now Don Richards is done with her testimony, at least for now. Carrie Morgan took the stand, a former friend of Cassie Ventura's. She testified supporting Cassie's claims, recounting her own alleged assault by Mr. Combs. She described witnessing Diddy drag Cassie by her hair in Jamaica and an incident where Combs choked and struck Morgan herself with a hanger, causing her to have a concussion. This woman has had to go to the hospital because of Sean Diddy Combs. Didn't come out and sue, didn't go file a criminal report. What were you guys thinking? Why didn't you file a criminal report? I'm just in shock, right? So that is going to believe the jury to that is going to cause the jury to believe that Sean Diddy Combs really did have coercive influence over these ladies. Why didn't they say anything? Why is it several people being abused and threatened by you and they're afraid to speak up and say anything? It's not normal, right? So she had a concussion. She said that Cassie facilitated a payment from Combs in exchange for her signing a non-disclosure agreement about him going upside her head with a hanger. She said that Ventura's demeanor changed during her relationship with Combs. And then she talked about an incident where she saw Combs attempting to enter her Ventura's apartment, Cassie's little apartment, with a hammer. So he sat there and hammered Cassie's door down in an attempt to enter. And then the defense cross-examined her. Now, the prosecution presented a photograph during Don Richards' testimony showing Don Richards, Ventura, and another woman wearing sunglasses, allegedly in solidarity with Ventura, who had a swollen eye from being socked in the eye by Sean Diddy Combs. And then there was a recall of an incident where this woman, Morgan, she said that Cassie had been assaulted and she thought that Cassie was dead. Cassie had run into a ditch and was laid out. Like she basically had to get her mind back on track. She had basically been dazed. I don't know if you ever seen a cartoon with like stars around your head, but she basically said that Cassie had run into a ditch and like laid out to where she was dazed, and she went in the ditch behind her running from Diddy because of course she had already gotten a concussion from him. She was scared of him. She didn't sign a non-disclosure agreement and taking a payment to not say anything about it. Like, I don't know why you're taking payments. But then so they run into this ditch. Cassie's fall out and she thinks Cassie's dead. She actually thinks Cassie is not alive. And then so eventually, sometime later, Cassie gets up and runs into the woods. Now, if you're a woman that has to run into the woods from your man because he's doing team too much in regards to violence, baby, you needed to have gotten out of there. I mean, like, my goodness, it's crazy to think that all that stuff was going on. None of us knew. He's presenting things like they're normal to the public. It's just a very sad situation. So the prosecutor aimed to building a case throughout corroborating testimonies. The defense is attempting to undermine and discredit the witnesses. Um, they basically this woman, Carrie Morgan, her experiences with Diddy are now put on display. He's not gonna get away with this. He's gonna have a hard time, a hard day trying to explain all these things away. A lot of people are saying, do you think Diddy is gonna take the stand? Absolutely not. He's not going to take that stand. He would be a fool and a half to take that stand at this point. That would be the worst, very worst thing that he could do. Now, another thing that I want to point out is the situation about the security guard. Okay. There's going to be a lot that is going to be said about the security guard. A lot of people were asking, well, do you think that the security guard is going to eventually be charged with anything? Do you think that that they're going to say he did anything? I definitely don't think that they're going to say he did anything. And the reason why is because he's been on social media talking and vouching for Cassie and making it known that he is not afraid um, to speak out against the situation. I think he's going to be on that witness stand with the prosecutors eventually. And I think that he's going to save his own butt. I do not think that he's going to go down with them because Diddy is the boss of the said Rico, and they weren't committing any direct crimes. They were just doing the things that he said to do. It really was Diddy doing all those things on his own. But there is a lot being said, and I'm going to come and do video about that and at another time. What I do want to say though is that they have been mentioning the security guard's name, the defense team. They're trying to pin this on his security guard. They're trying to make it put it on the security guard that's on social media speaking out. And they kept asking Don Richards and several other people who was present, what was going on, and they were suggesting that it was the security guard. And guess what? They threw up a picture of him looking very violent, looking very much so uninviting. And they chose that picture on purpose. But I believe that the prosecution understands and knows what's happening, that they're going to try to pin it on some of the other employees, and they're going to fight back against that. I believe that that security guard is going to be taking the stand sometime soon. I mean, we have a 8-week trial left. They're talking about June 4th or somewhere in there. The date. Oh, I want to. Hold on. Let me make sure. What day is the Diddy trial going to conclude? Because they're saying a date. I want to make sure that I have. Hold on. So they said around the end of June, the beginning of July. So July 4th. And they could even be July 18th based on certain statements that are being made. So I just wanted to make sure that I got you that correct information. So it's not June, it's July 4th and possibly July 18th that this will conclude. So we have a lot to unpack, a lot to uncover. I know that a lot of my rhetoric, I kind of repeated a few things. I want to reiterate a couple of things about the case, but I'm going to be doing a note by note dictation reading from Inner City sometime soon, who's in the courthouse, who's taking notes and taking dang on good notes, if I might add. And we're going to read through that sometime very soon. So keep your eyes peeled for the live videos. Thank you for joining, and I'll see you on the next one.